Good afternoon everyone, I am back again and today I'm going to be making a video about teaching in the UK. Obviously that is the reason that I came to the UK, if you didn't know that. I came to the UK to teach. I am a teacher, I am a primary school teacher. I have been teaching for, this is my second year, so a year and a half I've been teaching for. Last year, before I came to the UK, I was doing supply work at home, or CRT work, casual leave teaching, which is what we call it in Victoria where I'm from. So I moved to the UK to teach because I didn't get a full-time job after uni. There were so many graduates and there were not enough jobs, and the ones that I did apply for I obviously didn't get, which has actually worked out fine because now I'm here and I'm getting all of these experiences. And though it is interesting, it is definitely interesting, I'll say that, I'm really glad I've done it. So I'm going to talk about some of the things you might need to think about if you are thinking about teaching in the UK. These are at least some of the things that I thought about and that I sort of organised before I came over here. The first one is, where are you going to live? Now, compared to Australia, the UK is a small place. There are still so many places that you can go to. And I think more and more people are realising that the UK is more than just London. You do not have to live in London. It is really expensive, it's busy, and it's very fast paced. That's an environment that I did not want to live in, so I knew when I decided to come to the UK that I would not be in London. It was not even an option for me. Mitchell and I sort of started out looking at some of the smaller cities, and eventually we settled on Bristol, and it's the best choice we made, I think. I really enjoy it here. So do your research, have a look, sort of think about what kind of experience you want. If you want that fast-paced experience, I mean, some people think that they have to live in London if they go to the UK, then try it out, but I knew it wasn't going to be for me, so I didn't even bother. If you are going to the UK to teach, you are probably going to be joining a teaching agency. What I did before I came over here was I contacted a bunch, and I'm talking probably 7 or 8 agencies I contacted. I asked them questions about where they were based, what locations they were at, if they had short-term, long-term work, what the pay rate was. That's a really important one because different agencies have different pay rates, and obviously you want the highest pay rate for your profession and for what you're doing. So if you can get a higher pay rate at one place, you're better off going there than another. But then you also need to weigh up, will that place get me as much work as this other place that might pay me slightly lower? A few of the agencies will offer you something called a guaranteed work scheme. Now this is something along the lines of they will give you 4 days or 5 days of teaching a week, guaranteed. If you do not get those days off them, then they will pay you that. I think it's at the end of the month or at the end of 6 months. I'm not really sure because I'm not on that. I opted out of that. There were some things that I did not like about that option, such as the distance travelled. I don't have a car here, I've discussed that already. I rely on public transport, and part of that guaranteed work contract is that you might have to go to a place that is, I think, up to an hour or even more away. If you say no to that day of work, you don't get paid for that, even if you don't end up getting work at another school. I have some friends who are on that particular contract, and yes, it's good because they get the work, but also it just seems like a really big pain that you can't reject work. You don't have the freedom to be picky. That's like I do, because I am quite picky, which is probably not ideal, but I mean, it seemed to have worked for me so far. As I said, I contacted a few agencies. I called them, I emailed them. Most of them replied. Not all of them did, very interesting, but most of them replied. I did end up going to an information session in Melbourne for one of the agencies. Basically, I'd already done a lot of research. It didn't tell me anything that I didn't already know from my copious amounts of Googling. So it was interesting to go and talk to other people and talk to the agency and talk to the people who organise it, but essentially it did not give me any more information. So I'm not going to mention the name of the agency that I ended up choosing, but so far I'm very happy with my choice. I've been here since September, and I've only had 2 weeks where I sort of had to do day-to-day supply work. I'll discuss that a bit later, but I've only had to have 2 weeks, and though I didn't get much work in that time, the time when I've had the long-term role, they have been fantastic with the problems that have arisen during that time. This brings me into, do you want to do day-to-day supply? Do you want to do long-term supply? Maybe you want to come over and get a contract straight away. It's different for everybody. I knew that I didn't want to go into a contract straight away just because I wanted to sort of see the differences between the curriculums and just the way schools are run, basically. So I intended to come over and do day-to-day supply, and that was always my intention from the start. Obviously, there are positives and negatives to doing both short-term and long-term, or even day-to-day and long-term, or day-to-day and contract. There are positives and negatives to all of the options. Obviously, with your day-to-day supply, it's the same as in Australia. You get a different class every day. You might not know what year level you're going to be in. You have to be prepared for anything. It's very much the same here in the day-to-day supply aspect. Some things that I have noticed that have affected me, obviously, is the transport. I had a car in Australia. It was easy for me to drive to the schools. Here I don't have a car, so I have to be able to get to the school by public transport. That hasn't really turned out to be a problem at all. Like, I've had no issues having to get to the schools that I have had to go to, so I've been quite lucky in that respect, but I'm sure it can cause problems. As long as you look up the school before you accept it or not, you'll be fine. One other thing I've noticed different is most, if not all classes, especially the ones that I've been into, have a TA, which is a teacher assistant. Now, this is somebody who can help you out. They know the routines already, they know the kids, and they know what they've done. So take advantage of the TA. Don't be scared. So I found most TAs are more than willing to help you. If you're confused about something on the plan, or if you don't know where the kids need to go to eat lunch or anything, they can help you out. So make sure you ask the TA. If you are on day-to-day supply, you will have to do marking. Now, it's interesting because in Australia, I found that I never did marking. I mean, in my long-term or longer-term roles, I did do the marking, obviously, but in day-to-day supply, I never even considered it, and it was never something that I felt that I had to do, and never something that I was told I needed to do. Here, that's not the case. You have to mark it as if you were their teacher, which is sometimes really tough because obviously you don't know these kids and you might not know the marking procedure, so it can take a long time to do all of that marking. I will say that the marking here is ridiculous. The marking procedures at the schools are like nothing I've ever seen in Australia. Every single book needs to be marked every single day. That's maths, literacy, topic, everything. All pieces of work that the children do needs to be marked. And I'm sure people who are watching, if you're watching in the UK, are saying, well, why would they not be? But in Australia, that's just not how it works. Not every single piece of work will get marked, especially not to the standard that they are marked here. If you want to do long-term work, that seems easy to come across, from my perspective anyway. Schools are desperate basically for people who want long-term work or contract work. So that's an option as well. Obviously, that means the workload is going to be much, much bigger. I've actually been in long-term roles basically since I've been here. Again, I'll get into that later. It was not my intention when I got here. So yes, the workload is going to be much bigger if you opt for that option instead. You will have to go to staff meetings, you will have to stay back and do the planning, you will get PPA time. Essentially, you are a full-time staff member, even if you are only there for a term. You do everything that all the other staff members would do. It is a lot of work, it's intense. It's good in the sense that you become part of a team, so you do feel like you do get to know the school community and you do feel like you belong in that community, which is really good, and it builds up confidence, and also it gives you invaluable experiences. It's fantastic being in the one school all the time because you get to know the kids and you get to know the parents and the staff, and it really helps boost your confidence, especially for somebody like me who did not feel ready for a long-term role. Now it's sort of easing me into it. The differences in curriculum from the UK curriculum to the Australian curriculum. They are very similar in terms of levels, so where the children are at and the age of kids as they go into school. I think my camera just overheated, so I'm not really sure when it cut out, but I'm just going to keep talking from where I was up to before. I was talking about the 3 stages. So there's early years, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. Early years is broken down into foundation and reception. Key Stage 1 is Year 1, Year 2 and Year 3, and Key Stage 2 is Year 4, Year 5 and Year 6. At least that's the way that I've seen it. I hope that that's right. So basically how I'm treated as an Australian teacher here is fine. I've had no problems at all. Everyone's really friendly. They're used to having Australian teachers in their schools. It seems to happen a lot. As far as I'm aware, I've been in the same school for ages now, so I've seen a lot of Australian supply teachers come in, and I always chat with them and it's really good. So they're used to it. So it's not anything different for them because they see it all the time. I found it really interesting because I'm at a very multicultural school. A lot of the children don't speak English, so they often ask me, they know I'm not from the UK, so they ask me where I'm from and I say Australia, and they ask me what language I speak. And I say English. So I tell the children that I speak English, but I have a different accent. And trying to explain that to a 6-year-old is tough. They just don't understand it. And they say things like, can you talk to me the way you speak at home? And I just say, I am. This is the way I speak at home. And they just don't seem to grasp that. So I was in a reception class one day for 2 days, and I had to take phonics, obviously, because I had to take all of the regular sessions that the classroom teacher would take. So I was taking a phonics session, and I had the TA in the room, and I had all the children in front of me. And I can't even remember what sound it was, but one of the sounds I said, and the children didn't know it. It was on the planet, so they'd done it before and they should know it. The TA said, no, we don't say it like that. And it was so bizarre because then I had to change the way I would normally teach this sound to children and teach it the way that they were used to. And that was an interesting situation anyway, because they had a team teach. So one teacher was from Ireland and one teacher was from Scotland, and I'm from Australia teaching these children phonics. So they're going to be very confused, I think, going into year 1. So basically, being an Australian teacher in the UK is not weird at all, and you don't get treated any differently for it. People are really interested and they ask you a lot of questions, but they don't treat you any differently to any other teacher. The behaviour of the children is a lot worse in schools in the UK, at least from my experience and also from what I've heard from some friends of mine. Some of the things I've witnessed here, I have not seen anything like it in Australia, and I'm not sure if that's the area that I live in or the school that I'm at. I also know that some friends who are at different schools have had similar experiences where they say the behaviour is much harder than in Australia. And I was warned of that before I came over here, but I was not prepared for what I would see. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry if you are now in a different position / the lighting is different and everything, because my memory card just filled up, so I had to export you off and put you back. Basically, if you do day-to-day supply work, you will be able to be more flexible, which I love. You're allowed to be picky. So for example, I said to my agency, I don't want to do Key Stage 2 because, to be honest, Key Stage 2 terrifies the crap out of me. Always have, even in Australia. I taught them, but they scared me. Here, I feel like I don't have to, so I was allowed to be picky and say I didn't want to teach them. I taught in the nursery, which I had never done before. I don't even know if I'm qualified to do that in Australia, but I taught them here. I probably wouldn't do it again, but I did it and it's experience, and I'm here for the experience. So you can be flexible, but say yes to everything. Basically, if you are thinking about teaching in the UK, give it a shot. I sort of said to myself, if I don't like it, I'll go home in 3 months. If after 3 months I do not like it, I will go home. And it's been over 9 months and I'm still here and I'm staying, so I like it. If you do day-to-day supply, you're not tied down to any commitment. If you pick up a contract before you come over, you won't know what the school's like. And a lot of people have been trapped that way, in that they sign a contract before they come over, but it turns out they really don't enjoy the school, or it's not in a good location, or they just don't get on well with the children or the staff, and basically they're trapped. Come without signing a contract. You don't need to freak out before you come. There is plenty of work. You don't need to stress yourself and try to look for something straight away, because you will find something. If you want long term, you will find it. If you go to a school and supply and they want to keep you, they will find a way to keep you. Trust me. And that's pretty much it, I think. I'm not sure if I've covered everything. I'm sure I've forgotten some things. If you have any other questions, leave them below and I can try to answer them in another video. But basically, that's it for now. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. And yeah, I'll see you next time.